Hello and welcome to North Country Matters. My name is Donna Seymour. I'm a member of the St. Lawrence County League of Women Voters, one of the civic partners for this show. My guest today is Moriah Engelberg from A Better Balance. She's the organizer for the campaign to improve temporary disability benefits here in New York. Moriah, welcome back to North Country Matters. Thanks for coming back to give us an update on TDI and paid family leave, which are two important programs for workers here in New York State in 2026.
Thank you so much for having me. I really
Well,
appreciate it.
it is my pleasure, my dear. So let's remind folks how these two benefit programs work and who they are for, please.
It's a great question. Okay, so we in the state, if we have two programs. One program is paid family leave. The other program is temporary disability insurance. These two programs are the programs that you can take for leave regarding medical leave. But the big difference between these two programs, well, there are a couple of big ones, but the large difference of these two programs is who they're intended for. So for paid family leave, it is a program that has been was introduced in 2016 in New York State, and it allows you to take time off of work to care for a loved one when they are going through a serious illness or to bond with a new family member, whether it's a new baby or a foster child. So that is what paid family leave is. It is for basically other people. You can take it to take care of or bond with another person. Temporary disability insurance functions as our individual medical leave program. So, medical leave, temporary disability insurance, TDI, all these things really mean the same thing. And TDI is the program that you take if you have medical needs of your own. So, you have these two separate programs under this big umbrella of paid leave. Paid family leave is what you take when you're taking care of somebody. Paid medical leave, temporary disability insurance is the program that you take for yourself. Which, all right, we have that set. The huge problem that we have is that the benefits that you can receive, whether you're taking paid family leave versus temporary disability insurance, are dramatically different. The first thing is that with paid family leave in New York State, you get up to 67% of your paycheck, up to a cap of about $1,200. The other thing that paid family leave affords you is that is always going to be job protected. It means that you can come back to your job after you take time off of work to care for your loved one. The other piece to that is that you have your health insurance. So you can take up to 12 weeks. You receive up to $1,200 of your paycheck. That's the cap. Your health insurance is protected and your job is protected. And you can take that in chunks. So, for example, if you're taking care of a loved one with cancer, you might be taking a Wednesday off every 2 weeks to drive your dad to chemo. No problems there. You get that protected time off to take care of a loved one with up to 67% of your paycheck. Great. The problem is that with temporary disability insurance or TDI, our paid medical leave program, the person who is sick, seriously ill, or injured and taking that is only entitled to $170 a week. $170 a week. To really kind of rub salt in the wound, your job is not protected. You do not have job protection. And in New York, most people's jobs are how they get their health insurance. So if you lose your job, you lose your health insurance. You also can't take that leave intermittently, as the law is currently written right now, which means that you have to take it up to, you kind of have to figure out, like, how long am I going to be sick for? Which, of course, isn't how illness works for a lot of people. The one sort of benefit to the temporary disability insurance program is that you can take up to 26 weeks. But that there's problems there because you can't really see into the future about how long your cancer treatment might be. You don't know how long your leg might take to recover. And that intermittent leave piece doesn't exist in the paid medical leave program, but it doesn't paid family leave. But really the larger issue here is that if you are seriously ill or injured, seriously sick, you can't go to work, you cannot survive on $170 a week. It is simply impossible. For a 40-hour work week, that's about $4 and some change an hour, which is just, it's simply impossible, especially if you can lose your job and then you lose your health insurance. It's not, it's a completely unworkable program for anybody who needs to take it. And I think the thing that's also happening in New York State is that we're really, really far behind. There's 14 other states, including DC, that offer paid family and medical leave programs. And New York, in terms of benefit level for temporary disability insurance, we are dead last at 170. Which is, it's really shameful that this is where we are in 2026.
So, Moriah, affordability is on everyone's mind these days, and paid family leave and TDI play a critical role in keeping families able to meet their expenses. Paid family leave does this pretty well. As you point out, TDI is woefully underfunded. Let's talk about why that is and how it can be fixed this year, because we have another opportunity to get it right, don't we?
We do. We have another opportunity to get it right, which is really exciting. And I think with that affordability piece, I want to say, at a better balance, we have a free and confidential legal helpline, and we hear from workers who are forced to sometimes sacrifice their health for a paycheck, or when there's no other option, are forced to take temporary disability insurance and have been forced to declare bankruptcy or had to go to
Mhm.
housing court because they cannot afford to live when they're on this program. And I think we have this opportunity to, what we have been working on at a better balance with our large coalition is to bring the temporary disability insurance program up to par with the paid family leave program. So you don't have these two different programs where the person who's seriously ill or injured and needs to take time off of work is really getting the shorter end of the stick there. So we are trying to create this paid family leave program that match the temporary disability insurance program that matches paid family leave so that they're on the same level. And that is through the form of a bill in the Senate and the Assembly. In the Senate, the bill is S172, and in the Assembly, it is a 9571, sponsored in the Senate by Senator Ramos and in the Assembly by Assemblymember Bronson. We also have exciting news that right now, if you're kind of watching the legislative landscape, improvements to TDI are in the Senate One House bill, which is a really exciting piece. It just gives us a little bit of time to kind of continue to open up this conversation about how can we support New York's workers when they need help the most. Um, so we're very excited that that continues to be part of the conversation. And, you know, in one way, shape, or form or the other, this bill needs to be passed so that New Yorkers can take the leave that they deserve and need.
So, can you give us a short outline, Mariah, of how those two bills would work to actually give TDI a fighting chance? Instead of being hit with a stick, you
Yeah.
actually have something that can be useful to families.
Yes, absolutely. So right now, one of the things that I think I have not yet mentioned is that why we're stuck at this $170 a week number is because the last time that this bill was touched was 1989. In 1989, lawmakers wrote out the number $170 into the bill language. When you write that in, it doesn't index for inflation. It's why we've been frozen at this $170 a week cap since 1989. I think one of the little pieces that is a little bit interesting in the history of temporary disability insurance is that it is a program that has existed in New York since 1949. And the last time the bill was touched was 1989. And in 1989, it's hard to believe, but $170 a week meant something. It no longer does. So what this bill would do is slash that $170 a week cap and do something that allows the numbers to adjust for inflation. So it would bring the wage replacement rate up to 67% of your paycheck, up to a cap. Right now, the cap is about $1,200 a week, which just brings us right up to where our paid family leave program is. The other thing it would do would be to ensure that workers are able to have job protection, that they're not going to be worried about, is my job going to be there for me when I am finished with my treatment? It also ensures that people will have their health insurance at the time that you need it most. So you're not going to be worried. The last things when you are in a hospital that you should be thinking about are, oh, am I going to still have a job and my health insurance after this? How am I going to be able to make rent? How am I going to be able to put food on the table? And that this bill would help ensure that that is taken off the table so that people can really focus on their health. The last thing that this bill would do in terms of major changes is it would allow that piece of it would allow people workers to take intermittent leave. I touched upon that earlier, which is it's not only beneficial, it's really, I think we've heard from a lot of workers who, for many people, that intermittent leave piece is actually critical because it helps people feel more connected to who they are. For example, if you're undergoing cancer treatments, you may not want to only be thinking about chemo for the duration of your chemo treatment. Being connected to the work that you do can be really important for people to return back to that, should they want to. And then for other any kind of chronic illness, for example, we work with the Endometriosis Foundation of America. It's a chronic condition that might require you to take a day or two off of work every couple of weeks, but you're ready to return back to it. So it is something that is like one key piece that we're really excited about being involved in the bill that we're working on, A9571 and S172.
So really what you're talking about is if we can get these bills passed and signed into law, the temporary disability insurance would reflect real life conditions, which it
Yes.
doesn't now. And that's really important, as you point out, about keeping people connected in their lives to their work and feeling like they are actually able to make progress instead of being stuck. So that's good for your mental health as well
Mm-hmm.
as your physical health. So you had mentioned this before, but let's talk a little bit in terms of numbers about just how embarrassing New York's TDI rates are compared to other states, because it is a travesty of what we offer compared to the other states who are actually well ahead of us, isn't it?
It really, really is. I mean, I think one of the things that is quite shocking is that across the other states that have these programs, we see that there is such a significant and stark difference. I have a chart that I can share. We can maybe put in the notes at some on the end, but it is New York is absolutely dead last in terms of benefit replacement amounts. Right now, the first place winner of paid family and medical leave wage replacement is California. If you are taking time off of work in California, the cap is about $1,700 a week and some change. Washington, about 1,600, Oregon, 1,600, and then we go all the way to New York and it's $170 a week. I think one of the things that's also interesting is if you kind of go a couple of miles over, if you're a worker in New Jersey, you know, you can get up to about it's $1,000 and $1,119. For some reason is in my head. But it is if you work a couple of miles over, you have significantly more amount of money that you're not having to make that sacrifice. You're not having to worry about how the hell am I going to try to survive off of $170 a week at a time when you probably are spending more money than you ever have before, on your medication, all kinds of things. So it is really, I think it has been a real shock for many people to learn, and we hear this on our helpline, this absolutely staggering number of $170. It sounds out of this world, and we're completely being lapped by states, our neighboring states, in terms of the benefits that they offer, the wage replacement amount that they offer. And it is really shocking that this is something that has truly been frozen in time since 1989. I mean, it's not like you can tell your landlord, my wage replacement has been cut significantly. Can we work something out? That's just not going to happen. I mean, our groceries are expensive, our electricity is expensive, everything is expensive. And it's really a shock that New York has continued to be just so utterly frozen in the 20th century for such a critical issue.
Yeah,
That happened.
you're absolutely right. And basically leaving TDI rates where they are, which we've been doing for decades now, condemns a worker to poverty while they're trying to recover from an injury or a temporary medical condition. We have the power to do better, and it is certainly time that the legislature stepped up and did that. And we're not talking a lot of money here to the state, are we? Because that's not how these programs are paid for. Explain what raising the rate of TDI to a reasonable amount would actually cost the state.
That's a great question. And so if you, a little bit thinking back to what I mentioned, the state has had a temporary disability insurance program since 1949. This has existed since then. It exists, been part of our state's insurance program literally since 1949. So it's not going to cost the state, it will be a slight administrative cost to the state once we can get this program up and running to have people who can process these claims. So there's like a very, very, very minimal cost to the state in terms of making sure that this program is just kind of being broadened and amplified. So cost to the state is minimal. The thing that is also important to think about here is who is going to pay for this. For paid family leave, workers cover 100% of the premiums, 100% covered by the worker. Our proposal for temporary disability insurance and how this is going to be paid for is a continuation of how the program has already been paid for. It has been a shared cost program since its inception. In 1989, it was a shared cost 50-50 split between workers and employers. And in 1989, we did not have paid family leave. So workers were not paying 100% of the premiums for paid family leave. So our proposal here is that workers and employers continue to be a shared cost program, with employers paying 60% of the insurance premium and workers paying 40% of the insurance premium. So when you think of these two programs combined, we think it's very fair that workers are paying that 40%, employers are paying that 60%, because paid leave is a benefit for everybody. It benefits workers and employers alike. So we think that that helps to kind of even out what some of the burden of the paid family leave insurance program has been. So that is where the cost sharing comes from, is this split between the employers and the workers in the premiums. But this cost to the state is very minimal, just most largely administrative.
So what we're really saying here is this is not only a benefit to workers, it's also a benefit to business, because business, for a relatively modest amount, is able to keep the worker in the workforce and just out as needed. And we know from other sources that the cost of replacing and training a new worker is much worse and much higher than keeping an existing employee on the payroll. So it really does benefit business as well. And with a minimal cost to the state, it's not something that shouldn't be a barrier to making this happen, should it?
Absolutely. And I think you hit a really key point there, in that paid leave programs can really help businesses retain their workers. That saves on turnover costs, which we have seen are some of the highest costs to small businesses in particular, is that retraining, rehiring. So it is actually very critical for it's really a win for everybody because it ultimately in the long run, it really saves businesses money. We also have seen that this is something that in particular for small businesses, it can help level the playing field to offer these kinds of benefits. And this has been something that has bipartisan support as well, which I think has been a really critical piece, is that this is something that everybody can benefit from.
Right. So we're in the budget negotiation portion of the legislative session here in New York. The governor's budgets come out. The two one-house budgets have come out. You mentioned the Senate includes TDI in theirs. And we know from our previous discussion that the TDI fix is not an expensive one, or or it's not going to cost the state a lot of money. And we're talking about billions in the New York State
Mhm.
budget. So this is a very, very modest program. What do we need the Senate and the Assembly to do right now as they start to do this budget negotiations with the governor?
The thing that's interesting, so it is in the Senate one house budget. It is not in the Assembly one house budget. But what that means is that these bills can pass as a standalone bill in the Assembly and in the Senate. It could happen today. It could happen tomorrow. Well, not tomorrow because I don't think they're in session tomorrow, but it could happen. It could happen if they were in session tomorrow. So we what needs to happen is just that these bills right now need to be passed. They need to be called to a vote and they need to pass in the Assembly and they need to be passed in the Senate and sent off to the governor. Um, they also could be, we can open the negotiations in the budget to sort of begin that process. But we're really pushing for these two bills in the Senate and the Assembly to be passed as quickly as possible. But ultimately, we just it feels ridiculous to continue having this conversation when we get further and further and further and further away from the last time this program was touched. It's been 35 years, over 35 years since the last time this was touched. So we really just need the Assembly and the Senate to pass these bills, which have a lot of support. The Assembly has over 80 co-sponsors, and it has passed in the Senate multiple times. So
So we really need to make Albany understand that they have to step up and take care of workers who find themselves unable to work because of a temporary disability. And in fact, it's a fairness issue. It really
mhm.
is. So, given the way the social safety net has absolutely been shredded by cuts in Washington, D.C., state action cannot wait. Who do we need to contact and what is our message?
We need to contact our representatives. And we have some tools that I would be happy to share about to figure out who your representative is and to give them a call and say, hey, I'm a constituent. I care about this. Not only for the workers, my friends who are workers, the people in my life who work, but also this is an important issue for me. We have no idea what might happen. It is entirely possible that any of us will need to take paid medical leave at some point in our lives. So making sure that we are trying to speak to your reps about continuing to build out this social safety net. And it should be an easy thing. You can remind them, you have the bill number. We're urging you, I'm your constituent, I'm urging you to pass this. And also to speak to the people in your life around you about this bill, about what this bill is and what it does. I think I was a case manager for many years before I did this job. And I had heard of paid family leave, but I had always assumed that paid family leave also meant paid medical leave. So you could take it for yourself, you could take it for your loved one. I just thought that it was kind of the same thing. And the reality is that it's not. So I think part of that too is education and awareness of letting people know, hey, just so you know, in the back of your mind, this is a program that exists, and there is a plan to change it, but what we need is your voice, and that your voice is really powerful, and that we're, as a state, we've done so many incredible things to support New Yorkers, but this is one that has been left behind, and we're not going to allow it to continue to be left behind. And we'll do that by making a lot of noise.
And one of the things that we know when we do advocacy with our state representatives is that the most powerful thing to do is tell a story. You don't throw
Mhm.
numbers at people and have them get engaged. You tell them a story which creates an emotional connection to the issue. We have an affordability gap in this state. When families can't make ends meet in energy, food, healthcare, housing, childcare costs, New York can't make ends meet, and public
Exactly.
dollars have to stretch when workers don't receive a fair TDI compensation. We've seen advocacy work many times before when the situation was critical. What is the better balance goal this year? Tell us what it is that we are going to finally get done.
We are going to pass both of these bills and get these sent off to signature for the governor. And that is, we have seen advocacy work when New Yorkers need it most. And this is a really significant way to help make sure that that affordability gap is covered when New Yorkers need it the most. So our biggest goal is to pass both of these bills. Previously, it is passed in the Senate twice. So we just need to make sure that we get this across the Senate and the Assembly finish line this year. And that is our large goal. We have until June to make it happen. That's when the end of the session is. And we're really looking forward to making sure that we can get this across the finish line and then getting this signed as quickly as possible to start making sure that there is a real program that people can use should they need to. And we hope nobody has to, but the reality is that people need it. It is a program that is needed because people get seriously ill. They receive cancer diagnoses. A lot of the temporary disability insurance claims are for pregnancy. People need this for gender affirming care. It is needed across the state. And this is a way to provide for New Yorkers is by getting these two bills passed in the Senate and the Assembly. So that's a large goal.
Well, thank you, Moriah. You have given us a lot of good information and you've given us a great call to action. And so we will try to all do our part to make sure this finally gets over the finish line. You and I have been talking about this for about 3 years now, and it's such a no-brainer about why we should be doing this. So let's hope that finally somebody in Albany is listening because it's so needed.
Yes, hopefully our next conversation will be about how this program has been signed and people are able to use it and continuing that education piece.
That's right, and how to use it. So yes, I agree.
Exactly.
Well, thanks again for coming in, Moriah. Thanks for all the work that you do on this program of TDI and trying to get New York State to be affordable for people again. And anybody can fall down and break a leg. Anybody can get sick at any time, and it's just not fair that we don't have a program in place that helps people to get better and to get back to work. So I appreciate your time and your efforts. And as you say, next time it'll be talking about the success, we hope.
Fingers crossed.
You got it. So
Thank you
these
so much.
You're welcome, my dear. These conversations are a production of North Country Matters. This show is a civic collaboration between the League of Women Voters of St. Lawrence County and the Potsdam Public Library. Until next time, remember our North Country matters, and so does temporary disability insurance. So let's get the job done, folks.